Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me. This is Sierra from CRT Designs, and I have the November Says Stamp kit right here. It just got in today. Today is December 16th. Mail's been ridiculously slow, so I am going to show you quickly what's in the contents of the kit, and then we're going to make 5 cards. So let's take a gander here. I'll just pull out the package. Excuse my chair making all sorts of noises. All right. Whoop, stuff's still falling out. Okay, I think we got everything. All right. So let's start here. We got a cup of hot cocoa, which, I mean, I'm a huge fan of hot chocolates, so I'm totally going to make this and drink it when I'm making some cards. That'll be wonderful. And a candy. I think it's a watermelon flavored sucker. And then we have a set of sentiment strips. Here, let me pull out the sheet so I know exactly what's in here. So this is the, let's see, one sheet of Says Stamp thank you sentiment strips. So these are awesome because you can foil them and with like a mink. So that'll be really neat. So we'll have to try doing that, I think, because I think that would look really pretty. And then we have, I'm sure there's more than one envelope, but one envelope in soft navy with the not having to lick. And then I have a green Positively everything tool. I'm going to get a collection of these, I think. I bought the teal one when they first came out. I got the orange one in my kit, that Black Friday kit. I got the green one now, and a girlfriend of mine ended up with the pink one and didn't want it, so she's mailing it to me. So I'm going to end up with all of them at some point. So yeah, there's all the colors you can get. I love them. I think they're wonderful, but yeah, so there's also a card about all of the Positively everything tools. So we have an embossing folder. I'll kind of show you the back there. This is the Scandinavian Christmas embossing folder. This is stunning. I cannot wait to emboss it and check it out. So that's really pretty. I love their 3D embossing folders. And then we have a stencil. It's like a big wreath. That will be really pretty. We'll have to do some ink blending. And then we have the pattern papers for this month. And let me see who designed these. This is by, see how fast I can read. Here you go. 6 sheets of paper rose, the Scandi Christmas double-sided papers. So we'll take a quick gander at these. Look at how fun this would be to fussy cut out. I know, I think Vicky Papineau did a video where she fussy cut out a bunch of the images and made cards with them. It's stunning. You guys should go watch her video if you haven't seen it already. But yeah, these are stunning. Oh, and there's like little sentiments we could trim out and make like little labels with. That's really cool. And then some great patterns. So that's really pretty. So we have those. And then we have the stamp set, which is always my favorite thing out of these. Because you guys know I like to color. And this stamp set just really caught my eye when it came out. I think I might try to get the die set to this, but this is the Cozy Wishes 6x8 stamp set. Yeah, stunning. And I love the sentiments. I think it's great. I don't know if we're going to make Christmas cards or winter themed cards yet, but we'll have to see what we end up making. But yeah, that's stunning. And then we have some cardstock. Okay, so we have a cream slimline envelope, which is awesome. And then we have our cardstock here. So hopefully that metallic silver isn't making my camera go bananas. It probably is. So here we have a piece of Neenah Desert Storm. This is, I believe, midnight green. Let me double check. Yep, midnight green, soft navy, a cream, and this is the silver that they just came out with. Simon just came out with their mirror pearled silver cardstock. So the kit is no longer available, as this is the end of December and I got it from November, but everything is available separately. So I will have it all linked and listed down below, but let's jump into making some cards. All right, so for the first card, I did cheat a little bit. I used a cream base that came in the other kit I did like last weekend, so I didn't have to cut a card base, but the cream cardstock also comes in this kit, so I just used a pre-made base that I already had. And I'm going to use the midnight green cardstock, and I'm just cutting down a panel that's about 1/8 of an inch smaller than my base, so I can have, maybe this one's 1/4 of an inch smaller, so that I can have a border around all of these sides. I love borders on all of my cards. If you guys have been with me for a minute, you know how much I love borders. And I'm going to bring in that really cool embossing folder, and I'm going to run this through my Big Shot That's what I choose to use for embossing folders. I think it's the easiest way for me to do it. I don't use my Gemini for them because I'm always terrified I'm going to break my Gemini. So I never run 3D folders through my Gemini. So there you can see I've embossed it. And now I'm going to bring in, this is some Delicata gold ink, and I'm only kind of adding slight touches of gold to the background. This card is going to be kind of like a cream, gold, and green kind of card. And although it's after Christmas, obviously you guys, it's January 1st today. I'm not really theming these as Christmas cards so much as just cards, but the color scheme could theoretically be considered a Christmas themed one, but that was not my intention. I just love gold. So I'm just adding touches of gold to the background. And really, I'm just kind of adding it with a dauber on top of the raised areas that kind of just create some color differential in the background. And I just thought that looked really pretty. And then here I have a piece of gold vellum. This stuff is stunning. This is my first time using it. And I brought out a nested circle die, and I'm just going to cut a circle with my Gemini to put on the panel to hold some of the trees that I'm going to cut out of the cardstock here in a second. So this is where I'm going to use my Gemini. I use both. I jump back and forth between the two machines all the time, just because I think it's easier. But yeah, so I cut out the circle with that vellum, and then I'm going to adhere, well, I'm not going to adhere that. I'm going to create kind of a snowbank here in a second. But I really wanted to use these trees. Now you can see that I've already cut out some of this pattern paper. It's going to come in a different card later. I kind of make them all and then decide how I want them in order of the video. So I kind of change it up usually, but I'm cutting out the trees from this pattern paper, and they're going to be our focal point in this card. And I mean, I don't think that it's difficult to fussy cut these images. It's totally up to you. Some people I know greatly don't enjoy fussy cutting. I don't mind it. I just usually put on actually, I think at this point I'm watching YouTube videos. I'm probably watching Amy R from Prairie Paper and Ink, actually. But I put on videos or I watch something and then I just cut these. And I mean, these ones are especially easy. They're just triangles. That other green one was slightly more difficult, but even then, very simple fussy cutting. But I mean, to each their own, right? And I did actually cut this circle out of cream stock. I was going to mat my gold vellum circle on a cream card or cream circle and then change my mind because I didn't like how it looked. So I just cut off a chunk of that circle and I'm just creating a base for my trees to sit on. And that pattern paper to the left there, I'm going to cut a sentiment out of those kind of sentiment strip pieces on the bottom there to do as our sentiment for this card. But you could stamp something as well if you prefer. I'm just kind of trying to create a simple-ish card with pattern paper because I generally don't use pattern paper. It's kind of something that I don't lean towards. So I kind of have to push myself outside of my comfort zone to create things that use the pattern paper because, I mean, you have it, so why wouldn't you use it, right? But you're going to see when we jump into the ATC that I went quite a bit out of my comfort zone with that one. So it's going to be really interesting to show you guys that when we get there. But yeah, I'm going to adhere my trees down with some Barely Art glue. It is my preferred glue. It and Nuvo. This just because it has that super fine tip, which I love. And then this middle tree, I'm going to prop it up with a foam square behind it. It kind of got stuck to the base, like the kind of little hill that I created of the cream cardstock. So I just stuck a 3D foam square behind it. And then I did also fussy cut those little stars out of the same pattern paper just to add a little more to the background. And then here is that little sentiment. I cut it out of that pattern paper and then just did a little fishtail banner on both sides just to create a little added interest. I mean, I really struggle to like stop myself. I'm more of a more is more type of creator, so I do have to be kind of careful and kind of stop myself from adding all the things. You'll see here in one of these cards that I go a bit more than I maybe should have, but I don't know. I like how these turned out. So what do you do, right? And then I just put the glue behind the things that are already stuck onto that vellum circle. The vellum will show the glue through, so I am kind of conscious of that, and that doesn't give me a lot of room to put the glue on it. So I do end up adding a little dab of it up in the top, and then I just stuck a gem on top of it so you can't really tell. But I'm going to adhere it down. Now there's quite a bit of glue on the back of this simply because this is very textured with the 3D embossing folder. So this gives me more to adhere to. And then I am also going to put my Misty on top of it. You guys don't see that, but I put my Misty on top of it just to weigh it down so that it would adhere to my cream base. And then here I brought in these really pretty, these are metallic foil pearls, I believe, from, I believe it's Pink Fresh. I love pearls, you guys. I'm still on my big pearl kick. I don't know if I'm ever going to get enough pearls. There's pearls on like 3 out of the 5 cards in here. So like that tells you something. I get excited about pearls. But yeah, I brought these metallic pearls in and just adhered them kind of across the card. I do have a tendency from left to right. That is generally what I end up doing, but I like how this turned out. So that is the first card. Here is a close-up look of it, so you can kind of get an idea of what that gold looks like in the background there. And it is kind of subtle. I mean, it's not super eye-catching, but it does add a little bit extra to the background, which I really like. So for my second card, I'm going to make a slimline card. So for my slimline cards, I take a full sheet of cardstock and I cut off 4 inches, leaving me a 8.5 by 7.5. Nope. 8.5 by 7. Sorry, that always throws me off for a second. 8.5 by 7 inch card, and then I will score at the 3.5 mark, giving me an 8.5 by 3.5 inch slimline card. That is my preferred size. Anything that will fit in a size 10 envelope will work. And then I am going to cut a mat out of the soft navy cardstock. Oh, sorry, this is going to be my panel. I just kind of have to go back and forth trimming it down because I mean, I use smaller sized things. Like this scoreboard isn't big enough for a slimline card. You could, of course, have a bigger scoreboard. I just like to use what I have. Same with that trimmer. I mean, it's not really sized for this longer piece of cardstock, but again, I just use what I have and make it work just because it's easier to keep in focus for the camera purposes. So it's kind of what I end up doing. And then I brought in my MFT rolling clouds stencil, and I'm going to use some spun sugar to create my cloud in the background. Now I'm choosing this super light pink because, well, I like pink, you can tell by my nails, but mostly because of the white pigment in this color. Because it's so light, it looks really good on dark cardstocks, and it doesn't necessarily read as pink unless you add other pinks on top of it. So you can kind of look at this, and if you didn't know I was using spun sugar specifically, would you know that it was a pink ink? Like that's kind of one of the interesting things about oxides, is because of their pigment and their makeup. The pigment kind of gives you that really cool white effect, even though it's a pink ink. But yeah, so that was my preference. You could, of course, use a white ink if you have one, and I do have one. I like to use my oxides for everything. I just kind of lean that way. And then I decided I really wanted to add a matte to this card. Now, the stamps that you see colored, or the images you see colored here, I stamped them out earlier, and I'm going to, I've already colored them with my Copic markers, obviously. And I can't show the coloring in this video because this video is already fairly long. So I do always cut out the coloring when I color images in these videos, simply because there isn't enough time. But I have tons of other videos where I actually show the Copic coloring. So if that's something that interests you, definitely go and check out some of my Copic videos. But for this instance, the images are already colored. And I do have a full list of all of the Copic markers that I use down below if you want to check that out. And I always have all that stuff linked on my blog as well. So if you're interested, go and check those links out for sure. Or if you really need to know, like specifically, ask me a question. I'm more than happy to let you know which ones I use specifically on whatever image. Just let me know. So I'm going to splatter on some Perfect Pearls because again, I love all the things that are shimmery and shiny. So I splashed on some Perfect Pearls to this background just to kind of give it a more whimsical feel. I mean, I was kind of picturing these rainbow envelopes like flying into the mail. So that's kind of my thought process behind this card. And I really like how it turned out. I think it's quite pretty. It's just, you know, well, if you've watched me, you know that I love all the colorful things and all the rainbows and all the sparkles. Bright colors make me happy, so I have a tendency to lean towards them. So I did adhere some thin 3D foam squares behind the mailbox and the envelope so they will stand up. And here you can see the sentiment sitting there. I was playing around with what sentiment I wanted. Now, you probably should not do it the way I'm going to do it here. I kind of thought that I was going to create a label with my sentiment and then adhere it down. In the end, I don't do that. I'm going to white heat emboss it. But generally I wouldn't suggest that, simply because I've already adhered all these down. And if you get embossing powder, it's going to stick behind them because of course they're sticky. So I would suggest that you emboss this before you adhere your envelopes down. However, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so I'm going to go in the direction that I'm going. And it was easy because it was the bottom corner. So I was easily able to keep any of the embossing powder away from the envelopes just by being careful and keeping it to that corner. So, I mean, but I would, if you're going to heat emboss, I would do that before you adhere anything down, just because, I mean, that gives you that chance to not create any issues. And of course, at this point, the glitter in the background is dry, so there's no concerns with it getting stuck in that extra glitter in the background. So, and I'm just going to heat set this until it is smooth and melted. This will never get old. I know that I tend to show heat embossing in my videos. I love so much watching embossing powder melt. It is probably one of my favorite things ever. So I have a tendency to keep it in my videos, but I just really like it. And then here I'm going to use my Nuvo Deluxe glue. Again, I bounce between Nuvo Deluxe and Barely Art glue, mostly because of the tip. Because the Barely Art glue has that fine tip, I tend that towards more delicate stuff. And then the Nuvo I would use just as a general rule, but I just kind of jump between the two of them. Both are awesome glues. And then I did use my Misty to weigh this down, just because the embossing the heat did warp that corner a little bit. So I wanted to make sure that it would adhere flat. And then I'm going to adhere this down to my base, which also is going to have a bit of a mat around it. So you see, or a border, sorry. So you did see that I did that silver mat around it. I like to border things. So I did about 1/8 of an inch on each. So just to kind of give you a very subtle border, but then that glitter is still there. Because I find the Perfect Pearls kind of leans towards being a more silver-esque shimmer. So I thought that silver cardstock would look really good. And then of course, because I need all the glitters, I brought in my Spectrum Noir clear glitter pen, and I'm going to glitter up all of the envelopes and the berries and the heart on the mailbox, and I think the flag as well. I brought this glitter pen in a few cards in this. And see, like, I don't really think this is Christmas themed necessarily. I mean, you've got some kind of, like, the mailbox, I guess, could be more Christmas-esque if you didn't have those envelopes. So this could easily have been a Christmas card with this set. But as you guys know, I received the box on the 16th. I made the cards on the 30th and 31st. And then, of course, I'm showing this video on the 1st. So I'm a little bit behind for my November kit. However, I really wanted to get that other kit out first because it was Christmas themed specifically. So I'm leaning more towards winter-esque cards with this than necessarily Christmas cards. And I did bring in my Jelly Roll pen. I like this for some added detail on the images. I think that it really brings it to life. However, be aware that if you're going to add glitter pen over top of your white gel pen, it likely will wash it off. Because they're both... I find if I use the white gel pen before I use the glitter pen will kind of eat the white gel, and then you don't have those details anymore and you'd have to go and try to put them back in. So I like to put the glitter on first, let that dry, and then bring in the white gel pen and add those details in. And then of course, because I'm a little bit extra, I had to add some glossy accents to the little hearts on all of them, all the envelopes, and then that little heart in the mailbox as well. And then I set that aside to dry, and then I'm going to hold it up here so you can see it in all of its glory. Look at all that shimmer and shine in the background. I'm trying to kind of catch that glitter pen. It's way prettier in real life. Sadly, it doesn't catch as well as I wish it did in camera, but it's just, this card turned out pretty stunning. I'm pretty excited about it. And then we're going to take a look at the image, and then we're going to jump into the ATC, which I'm excited about, but also a little nervous. I don't know why. It's just different than my usual creations of any kind. So I kind of went a little bit rogue with it, but I love how it turned out. So I have a piece of cardstock there, and I'm cutting it down to the only thing that is a rule with an ATC, an artist trading card, is that it has to be 2.5 by 3.5 inches. That is the size that an artist trading card needs to be classed as an artist trading card. And I am going to cut out a few of these images. This is what I'm going to use for my focals. And I cut out 3 of the baubles, and then I cut out a little bird and that lantern. And then I'm going to fussy cut them out again. So I'm kind of going to do like a collage style ATC, which is not something that I generally lean towards, but I've been kind of trying my hand at it and seeing all those posts from Vicky Papineau where she's doing these really cool collage art journals. I really kind of wanted to give it a try. So I cut out these little focal images, and as you can see, I cut out 5 because I love uneven numbers. I think that they are more appealing to the eye. And then I'm going to start kind of playing around with what I want on my card. So I brought in a pattern paper because I thought this would look really pretty with mostly blues in the focals, and I'm going to rip it back and forth a few times until I find kind of the shape that I'm after. And this is honestly a bit of a process. I can't give you a ton of advice on this because I'm so new to it, and it's kind of, if this makes any sense, feeling based, if that makes sense. And then this kind of craft, this is from the bag that the kit comes in. I wanted a little bit of craft in the background. I love craft. This kit actually speaks to me because the soft navy, the cream, and the craft are 3 of my favorite Simon's cardstocks. So I kind of had to bring those in several times throughout this video. And here you can see I'm going to rip down that pattern paper again, just because I'm playing with the idea of what I want from it and kind of what kind of pattern and layout I'm aiming for. So I kind of got where I wanted to be, and then I'm going to create this little slit, and then I'm going to roll the corners up as if this paper is aged, or it's kind of warping, kind of rolling away. And I just think that's a cool effect that kind of lets you see behind that piece of cardstock. So I kind of know what I'm going for a layout, so I'm going to adhere my stuff down. And I brought in my Barely Art glue again because these are smaller items, as they're going to fit my little ATC, which is of course smaller than any of the cards I'm going to make. So I'm going to adhere down my craft bag there, and then this piece of pattern paper that I've kind of ripped. And you could adhere down the rolled part. I'm not worried about it. I kind of like that it can shift a little bit. I think that just kind of adds a little bit more to it. But you could absolutely adhere them down and then they wouldn't go anywhere. I'm not concerned about it. And then I do adhere my little bird to the top of my lantern as if it's standing on it or it's packing it, whichever you want to look at that. And then I'm going to try to kind of play with a ground for my image. So I brought in some of the Tim Holtz washi tapes. And I'm kind of got this this vintage music note one that I think is pretty neat. And I kind of adhere that down. And then I'm kind of thinking about it, and I'm going to bring in a small one as well because that wasn't quite enough ground for me. I'm trying to kind of create something that the bird can stand on that kind of makes it look as though it's not just floating. Although, I mean, that's another look. You could absolutely do that. And then I kind of found this one that matched the snowflakes a little bit in that tube of washi tape. So I'm going to bring that one in as well and kind of just adhere that one on top and kind of create this layer. And then, because again, I can't leave well enough alone, I'm going to bring in this really, really pretty silver glitter one. And I think this really kind of ends up tying it together. Don't ask me why. I guess for me, shiny things need to be a part of everything I create. So I kind of this just finished up that little cluster for me, and I love how that turned out. And I did have some foam squares behind my little bird and my little lantern, and I'm going to adhere that down on top of my little washi tape cluster there. And that's just going to kind of ground the bird. So it looks kind of like he's sitting on something. I don't know, it worked for me. And then I'm going to adhere down my little baubles as well. And I did add another piece of that silver washi to the top left corner there. I think bringing it in another area really helped as well. And then I kind of laid out my baubles as if they're at different heights and different areas of my card so that there would be some interest in the background. Or I guess they're the foreground, but there'd be some visual interest in what's going on there. And I did also bring in these are the thin 3D foam squares. They're not adding that much dimension, but it's enough that they're not flat, if that makes sense, because I don't like that. And then I brought in the Pilot journaling pen, which I don't know if you can actually get anymore, to be honest, and just kind of doodled a bit, which is also not something that's normal to me, but I drew strings so that my baubles wouldn't just be kind of floating again. And then I'm just going to draw some little stars, some little dots kind of around the ATC and just kind of try to fill in a little bit of the space that I feel is a little bit less used. And then that's going to kind of fill in that space and kind of make it come together a bit more. I do also, of course, bring in some perfect pearls here in a second because, again, I can't stay away from the shiny things. And I think the perfect pearls being silver really help with the silver glitter washi tape that's there as well. So I kind of just flick on a little bit to the background there and just kind of have that add something in. I also bring in my white Jelly Roll pen and I use that in the background as well, just to add a few dots and a little bit of highlighting to the focal images. So I'm going to hold this up so you can kind of check it out here and see it up close. I'd love to know what you guys think of this. It's so different for what I generally create, but I really like it. I think it came together kind of neat. So that is a look at the ATC that I made. And then we're going to jump into card number 4. So this is going to be a pretty quick card. It's a mini slimline card. So for my mini slimlines, I like to do 6 inches by 6 inches and then score it at the 3-inch mark. That's my preferred. I make my own envelopes, so really you could do almost any size if you wanted to, but that's just kind of generally what I lean towards. And then I'm also going to bring in the stencil that came in the kit. I'm actually going to use the stencil for the last 2 cards in this video. So I'm going to score it at the 3-inch mark, just reinforce my score line, and then I'm going to cut down a piece of the craft cardstock. Again, craft is like one of my favorite things ever, so I'm going to cut it down to be about 1/8 of an inch smaller than my little base there, so that I can have a little border, because I love borders. I pretty much border everything and mat most things. I'm gonna be honest. I love it. I just love the look, so I kind of lean towards that. So I have Rustic Wilderness and Festive Berries, and then some blending brushes here. And I'm just trying to avoid the berries on the stencil. Now, again, I chose 2 colors that are traditionally Christmas colors. So you could recreate this card to be Christmas card, or you could create it to be something completely different. In my last example, I'm going to bring the stencil back in and do a completely different look. So I think that this stencil could be many things. I think it's just a beautiful wreath that kind of could really go around to anything. So I'm going to do the Rustic Wilderness on all the greenery, and then I'm going to bring in the Festive Berries and just try really hard to only put it on the dots. Keep in mind that with this, red and green make brown. So be careful with the 2 colors and make sure you don't blend them on top of each other. Unless brown is what you're after, in which case, of course, they make a brown that I quite like, but that is not the goal in this. So I was trying really hard not to get any red and green mixed together. And there is the final image of that. So I'm going to mix up some gold watercolor here. This is the Fine Tech Pearlescent watercolors, and I'm just using the gold one, and I'm going to splash that on the background. Don't do this like I'm doing this. I had this everywhere. I had it, like, I watch my iPad when I craft, and I had it on my iPad. I had it all over my glass mat. I had it everywhere. So maybe stick it in a splat box or something instead of doing what I did. And then, of course, again, I chose last minute to stamp a sentiment after I had splashed everything. So I did have to dry this. Excuse my head there. I did have to dry this just to make sure that it would not have embossing powder all over the leaves because they were a little bit wet still. So I heat dried it, and then I'm now going to emboss it. And you did see I used my anti-static powder tool there just to make sure that I didn't have a whole bunch of embossing powder sticking where I did not want it. And then I'm going to heat set this. And again, it's just because I love watching embossing powder melt. I swear, like, it's just magical. I don't know what it is about it, but it just always... It's magical to me. So I love leaving it in. I know that nobody needs to watch that. You've already watched it in this video, but I just love it. So I'm going to adhere this down to its base, and then we're going to just add a couple of pearls because, again, I love the pearls, and I'm going to adhere it down to its base. You can see it has a little border, which is why I chose the white embossing powder for the sentiment. I wanted to tie in the white that is in the background, that is on the base there. And then I brought in some gold pearls, which I used in the first card. So this is just because, again, I like pearls, and I like gold, and I like shiny things, and I don't know when to stop. So I add them to everything. That's just how I roll. And it's always in uneven numbers. So in this case, I believe I have 9 pearls on this. Uneven numbers are just more appealing to the eye as a general rule. So that is kind of what I aim for. So I just kind of put a few across the background, and then I'm going to hold it out so you can check it out in all its glory. Look at that cool gold splatter in the background. Isn't that pretty? I really like it. So this is the 4th card that we've made, and then we're going to jump right into the final card, the 5th card. So for the 5th card, I am going to once again use that really cool stencil. But we're going to do something slightly different. So I am going to use craft cardstock again, and I have cut this down with a white base, and I did leave it a little border around it so you could have some white. I'm going to go around in Salvaged Patina. I love colors on craft. I think that Distress Oxides look stunning on craft cardstock. I love how it looks. So I am going to go, and I didn't mask anything off. We're not going to add any other colors. We're literally just going to use Salvaged Patina, and that's going to be our background. And I think it turns out really pretty. So I'm going to just blend the stencil the whole around, and I do have it off center. I have it slightly to one side so that you get a little bit of pattern on one side and then more on the other, just so, again, it's a visual interest more than anything. That's just a preference I have. I try really hard not to center things. I find that it can take away from what you're looking at. And then I did remove the stencil and I didn't show it to you. Sorry about that. And then we're going to go straight into adding some sparkle to these little, I guess they would be birdhouses, or one of them is kind of a lantern. And of course I did color these off camera just because, again, that takes too much time and this video is already fairly long. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. What did you do for New Year's? I'd love to know. I cannot believe we're already in 2022. It's just feels insane to me. Where did 2021 go? Where did 2020 go? I mean, I don't know, guys. It's just crazy. And I am going to stamp a sentiment down, and I'm using some Versamark Onyx Black ink. And I'm just going to stamp it down in the top corner kind of there. And then I'm going to adhere down to my little houses. So I'm going to flat glue 2 of them because, again, this is going to add texture and visual interest to the card. So the 2 will be a flat, and then the tallest one in the middle is going to be popped up with some 3D foam squares. This again is just because I like dimension on all my cards. I think that it adds a lot of interest and looks better. And they are, of course, again, slightly to the left. So it's just design wise, I don't know. I do have a tendency towards one side, but I just think it looks better. So that's kind of why I aim there. You can see there's always like a little bit of a pattern in my cards. So it's kind of interesting because when you look, I'm going to add some pearls to this card. Go figure. I'm going to add some pearls to this card, and in it, I will start from the left corner and go down to the right bottom corner. That is just how I kind of tend towards with my pearls. I don't know why. It's just how I prefer it. And I'm going to cut off the bottoms there just so that they line up with the bottom, but I did leave the side of the birdhouse sticking off just again for some interest, and it's not in the way, so I left it. If it didn't fit in the envelope, which it will, but if it didn't, I would just again custom make one and it wouldn't matter. And then here you can see I used clear Arctic Breeze curls for this one. So, I mean, there's that, right? They're not gold pearls, although gold wouldn't have suited this color palette, but I did have to add pearls across it, and I did again go left top corner to bottom right corner. I love how that looks, so I tend towards it. But I don't know. I love how these cards turned out. I would love to know what you guys think. Did you have a preferred card in the group of them? You can see there I did also bring in my white Jelly Roll pen and added some highlights to the card. So yeah, tell me which card was your favorite. Do you like these videos? Do you guys like the 5 cards one kit? Does it give you ideas of what you could do with the kit if you purchase it, or the stamp set, or whatever, or just inspiration in general? I would love to know. So I'd love it if you leave me a like, leave me a comment. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. I do new videos every Monday and Thursday, and then I throw up fun 5-card one kits and hot videos whenever I can. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you again soon. Happy New Year!